Hello. Looks like I am live. Oh, and I've already got a couple of people. Hi, Teresa. How are you doing? Hope your Sunday is going well. So, in today's live, I want to talk about saving money, particularly because cost of living is here, things are getting more expensive, and I know that saving is probably going to be like the last thing on people's minds. So, I wanted to do this video. So, if you're a recent subscriber, hello. I tend to try and do lives once a month, usually the last Sunday of the month, and it is the last Sunday of the month. So, if you do have any questions, we can chat. Let me know in the chat if you've got any particular questions. If you do need further support, I also offer one-on-one coaching as well. So, if you would like to work with me, that is in the description below. You can book a call. And yeah, let's get started with all of this inflation because it's just not leaving the news at all. And I definitely think it's on people's minds, particularly if you're in the UK, when it comes to utilities. So our utility bills in October is supposed to be going up by about 65%, which is a lot. Like it's a lot. And I know there are questions on whether the government's going to intervene, but I do want to, and that's actually why I've decided to do this live, so that I can give you some tips where you can try to save money as quickly as possible, even just to help you with like the utility bills and all of that stuff. So I want to talk about some things that you can do to save money. Hi, Noma. I hope that's how you pronounce it, Noma. I hope you're doing well. I think our problem is more spending money than saving. I always budget, always make a plan, and still, as the month goes on, the money disappears. Really good point, Teresa. I think hopefully some of the points that I do make in this live will help. Same here, but I think for me it's because my kids' lunchboxes take a lot of my salary. Yeah, I think food is a really big thing. I mean, I did do a video talking about our food situation, and even with that, our food prices have gone up. Like we've been doing the same shopping, and I talk about this in my budget video on Tuesday. But we've been doing the same shopping, and prices have gone up. And so I know it's not me. I know it's not me. I know that prices have definitely gone up. But hopefully I can give you some tips when it comes to food. So one of the first points that I want to talk about is when it comes to, all of this high inflation, and if you're trying to save money, it's really important to first figure out whether you have an income problem or a spending/money management problem. And the reason why I say that is because I think particularly when it came to the pandemic and a lot of people were working from home but still having incomes, I think a lot of people may have thought that they know how to manage their money well because they weren't necessarily spending money. But then when things started to open up, they then started spending that money. And now because things are getting more expensive, some people are struggling with that. So that's one camp. On the other camp, you have people that do have an income problem where they were probably struggling even before the pandemic. So even before things shut down, they were already living paycheck to paycheck, and maybe most of their money was going towards, just their essential bills like utilities, rent, transport and food, and that was basically it. So you really have to be clear. Oh my gosh, Nomi, you're from South Africa. Well, welcome. So great to hear. Sorry, I digress, but welcome. Teresa's South African living in the UK. Amazing. I love to see other people from all over the world. But I think even when I'm talking about this, even regardless of where you're at globally, I think it's really important to be very clear and understand, do you really have an income problem, or do you actually have a spending problem? And I think that sometimes we like to think we have an income problem, even though we don't. So when you're trying to save money, really question yourself, because if you have an income problem, the first thing that you're probably going to want to focus on is your income. So if you knew that before the pandemic, before all of this high inflation, you were already struggling financially, then your focus should be to increase your income, because there's only so much you can do to cut your expenses. Like if you're already living on bare bones expenses, there is only so much you can do unless you basically cut out your electricity and don't use any of your gas, right? So, and there are some people in that situation. So if you're in that particular situation, your main focus is probably going to be trying to increase your income, whether that be starting something on the side, whether that be getting another job. I'll talk about that in terms of making more money later on in the live, but that should be your focus. However, for a lot of us, we don't have an income problem. Let's be real. For a lot of us, we do not have an income problem. And particularly if in the pandemic you were working from home, you still had your wages. Even I think with some people that were furloughed, like I was furloughed, but with people that were furloughed, because we didn't have to leave the house and we didn't have to spend money, it meant that we could still save. Like we could still save a lot. So what you need to question is, during the time that you were able to save a lot of money because you weren't spending it, to 2021, where things now started to open up, what has happened to your savings? Because if you realize that your savings have dwindled, it means that you might have a spending or money management problem. And that's then what you need to focus on. So again, you really need to be clear and understand, what is my focus? Have I kind of just been spending money and not realized that that I could be saving that money? And now it's kind of all gone, and now things are getting more expensive. This is when I'm struggling to save money. Or maybe you even just struggled to save money from the get-go, even from the pandemic. Maybe you were just shopping on Amazon every single week, and you realize that you've just spent all of your money instead of saved it. So it's important to be very clear on the spectrum, because that's when you can now start to say, okay, if I have an income problem, that's going to be my main focus. Or if I know I have a money management / spending problem, that's what I need to focus on as soon as possible, especially if prices continue to go up. And I want to be really mindful, because I think a lot of us think that maybe when it comes to all of this high inflation, that it's just going to go just like that, and we're going to go back to 2% inflation. It may not be like that. We may be in a high inflationary period for a while. So if that's the case, you really need to learn how to manage the money you have, as well as also then thinking about making more money on top of that. But it's really important to do, because we may not go back to just this 2% inflation, right? No matter what the central banks want to say or claim. But let's not lie, they've been wrong before. They've said that inflation was transitory and inflation was fine, a lot of these central banks, when in reality, it wasn't. So really, sometimes we just have to take things into our own hands, and we need to take control of it, because I don't plan on relying on the government. And if you want to, you can. And I'm not talking back from a political sense. I'm just talking from, in reality, I don't think they know what they're doing, personally. But that's kind of the first point that I wanted to mention. Yeah, everything else has to be paid. Ronya, you mentioned not spending well on lockdown. All I can say is Amazon. Exactly. Yeah. A lot of us we have to face reality and ask ourselves, when we had the chance to save money, were we actually saving it? And do we really need to now start honing back and understanding how we can actually really manage our money? Yeah, I don't have an income problem, but spending problem. But do you know what? That's amazing that you have that self-awareness, because now you can work on it. Whereas I think with a lot of people, they kind of say, oh no, I just need to make more money and I'll be fine. When in reality, the same thing will happen even if they make money, right? So again, you have to be very clear on where you are on the spectrum, and really ask yourself, be very realistic. I have had a spending problem before. I knew it was not my income. I could try and claim it was my income. It was not. I was spending every single penny I had for no reason. But I thought, if I get a promotion, it'll be fine. No, I still had the same habits, still had the same mentality. So that's the first thing. Yeah, sometimes the more money you make, the more you spend. Yeah, and that's happened with a lot of people, where they now have a lot of expenses, especially when things went up. Everyone had all this up savings, and they were like, yeah, time to enjoy, time to have fun, which is great, because I'm not saying you shouldn't spend your money, because I spend my money. I like to spend my money, but I also know how to manage my money as well, and I know how to save very easily, which then allows me to spend my money. So it's good to understand the difference and know what you need to focus on. So that's the first thing. Second thing is start to understand what your biggest costs are. So, for example, you probably know that one of your biggest costs is going to be your rent or mortgage, and especially with particular countries, interest rates are rising. With a lot of countries, actually, interest rates are rising. So, if you aren't on a fixed term mortgage rate, your mortgage may also rise as well. How much you're paying in terms of your interest may also rise as well. So you have to be really clear on what your biggest costs are. It could also be travel, and it could also be groceries. And so you want to now start thinking about, are there any ways that I can compromise? Is there anything that I can do to compromise? It's obviously a little bit hard with things like mortgage rates, but for example, if you're going to refinance your mortgage, could you make sure that you're getting the best deal possible? Right? Or when it comes to your rent, could you kind of negotiate your rent? Or even when it comes to location, could you think about moving somewhere cheaper so that you don't have to pay as much, so that you can save and still work towards your financial goals? Obviously, not everyone can do that, but it is an option for some people. Could you maybe, if you're a young person, you're single, could you live in a house of multiple occupation? That basically just means that rather than living on your own, you are sharing with other professionals, or it could be students, and you share maybe like the kitchen. I used to live in that place. It is not for the faint-hearted. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say it's all rosy and great. It is not. It was very difficult when I did it, but sometimes you just have to make sacrifices in the short term. So that could be an option. It could be that you end up going to live with your parents, for example. If you're young or single, for example, it could be that you end up living with your parents. Some people already do that as well. Like I know a lot of my friends, they still live with their parents as well. So that is again another option. But it's just really thinking about, what are your biggest expenses, and are there ways that you can compromise on that? So even with us, for example, we specifically chose, when we started renting in London, because rent is not cheap if you live in London, but we specifically chose not to rent a 2-bedroom house or flat, because it was a lot more expensive than a 1-bedroom. And for us, we didn't really mind living in a 1-bedroom flat, because I've basically lived in 1-bedroom during my time living in the HMO anyway, and my husband didn't mind either. And it's, we're married, so we don't care. And also, we hadn't started a family or anything like that. Like we don't have kids or anything like that. So for us, it was fine. And so we decided to make that sacrifice, because we knew that it would lower our overall expenses. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we're able to save so much, because we've lowered some of our biggest expenses, and we've kind of really just simplified our lifestyle, to be honest. But for me, I realized, especially when I was at a point when I was trying to pay off my debt, my biggest expenses was housing and travel. Those were my 2 biggest expenses. So if there was a way that I could compromise on one of them, I'd be able to save a lot more money. And that was one of the reasons why I was able to pay off my debt so fast. So it is an option. Again, it's not going to be for everyone, but it might be something that you wanna think about, especially if you want to save a lot of money relatively quickly. And then also things like when it comes to travel. So for example, if you have a car, have you thought about creating a sinking fund for car maintenance, so that you don't have to fork out money every single time? So and when I'm talking about sinking fund, what I mean is just saving up for something over time. So for us, we have a pot for car maintenance. So that could be if we have to buy insurance, and for us it means that we have enough money to buy insurance annually rather than monthly, so we end up saving money there. So it's just small things like that where you end up saving money. It could be that we have money set aside in case like we need new tires, if anything happens with the car, because sometimes cars are not that great sometimes, and cars are not cheap. So just having some money set aside for that car, so that you can then start to focus on saving for other things. That is something else you can do. Or, if you realize that you maybe don't need a car. So for us, again, we decided to only have 1 car, even though it would be nice. It honestly would be nice to have 2 cars, because sometimes one of us has to take public transport if we're going to another place. But at the end of the day, sometimes we just couldn't really justify the cost because cars are expensive as well. So for us, we would rather just have the one car between us and then focus on other areas, because having another car is nice, but like it's not like we wouldn't really value having another car essentially. So we are willing to compromise because we just don't really need it. So just think about your biggest costs and see if there are any ways that you can maybe compromise. Again, it's not going to be for everyone, but just see if there are ways that you can compromise, even with your travel expenses, for example. Figure out if you're maybe doing like a hybrid work thing where you're maybe only going in once or twice a week. Figure out if it's cheaper to just pay for those 2 trips rather than paying for a week's travel card, as an example, because then you can figure out, okay, well, where am I likely to save money? It could be that still getting the week's travel card means that you're going to save more money. Or it could be that you just doing pay as you go for a couple of days means that you'll save more money, and then decide from there. So it's just small things, taking the time to figure out what works. That's going to help you save money, especially during this time. It's probably even more important to do now. And it doesn't take long. Guys, sometimes we're lazy, but I'm gonna tell you, it does not take long. It doesn't take me long to figure out what's like the cheapest car insurance. Not necessarily the cheapest, but the best car insurance in terms of price and quality. It doesn't take me long. It literally takes me a few minutes to go on a comparison site and do it, right? So take the time. We all have 24 hours in a day, but take the time to have a look and see if there's any way that you can save, just because it's going to make your life a lot easier. And it means that you don't necessarily have to compromise on other things as well. So for us, that 1 bedroom flat that we're living in, it's like, yeah, it'd be nice to have a 2 bedroom flat, but it's not a huge difference for us right now because we don't have kids. So we can then use the money to save for other things. We can use it to invest. We can use it to save for our holiday, which we are still going to be going in a couple of months, which I'm very excited about. So there are ways that we're now using that money, right? So that's one of the things. Let me just look at a couple of the comments. Oh, got quite a few people here. Yeah, I've never saved in my life, and I'm struggling with that. I only save for retirement, and I really don't regard that as saving. It is still saving if you're saving for retirement. It is still saving. I always say that there are different things that you want to save for. So there are going to be your long-term goals. So that, for example, that's going to be retirement, that's going to be financial independence if you want to retire early. But there are also going to be other short and medium term goals. So those could be saving up for a house, it could be saving up for a car. Other things could be saving up for using sinking funds, essentially. For example, you could be saving up for a holiday, car maintenance and all of that stuff. So there are different aspects, I would say, of saving. I struggle to be consistent. That's I will talk about that when I talk about budgeting, actually, because being consistent with budgeting will help a lot. I take the extra money I have to get out of debt. That's still a form of saving, Noma. It's still a form of saving. So when I was paying off debt, I saved the money first and then I paid off my debt. And that's why when you really start to understand how to save money well, it will help you so much, because that helped me to pay off my debt. It helped me to save up for an emergency fund. And it also helped me to start investing, because I couldn't have started investing if I didn't know how to save money, because I need to be able to have the discipline to set money aside. Right. So it's all a form. Once you learn how to really start saving money very easily, and the way we save money is, like, the tips that I'm giving you, they're good tips, but one of the biggest reasons why we're able to save money is because of the way we have our system when we get paid, and we basically prioritize our savings. So it's literally like an essential bill, and then that's it. And at the same time, I had to learn how to control my spending as well, because I used to spend a lot. If you ask my husband, I literally used to live paycheck to paycheck, if anyone knows. I know a lot of you guys will know anyway, but I used to literally just spend my whole paycheck. So I also had to learn how to control my spending, as well as creating a system that helps me save money very easily, if that makes sense. Just spent my emergency fund last month because of a car accident. I'm going to be starting from zero in August. I would say, actually, from that, that's what an emergency fund is there for. So, like, yes, it can be annoying to use your emergency fund, but at the end of the day, that's what it's there for. That's why it's there. So that's why it's so important, because if things like that happen, you at least have money to pay for it. And again, if you're able to save up for an emergency fund and you're able to learn how to save that money, you're all good, because then you now have a pot. And if you're able to save money quickly, you can build that pot relatively quickly as well. Yes. Hi, Benita. Hope you're okay. But yeah, sorry, I'm really sorry about your car accident as well. I've been in a car accident before, and then my car basically got written off, and I did not have money to buy a new one. And during that same time, I ended up getting a car on finance as well. So that's why, that was one of the biggest triggers actually that got me to really start focusing on my money management, because I wanted to avoid situations where if I then get into another accident, I at least want to have enough money to, you know, deal with the car, deal with whatever. But yeah, really hope you're okay as well. Could you do a video on the help to buy ISA? The reason why I haven't done a video on how to buy ISA is because I've not personally used it. And when I do videos, I will usually do it on my personal experience. I will say that Ken and Mary from the Humble Penny, they do have a video on help to buy ISA. I can't even use the help to buy ISA because I'm not a first time buyer. I actually used the right to buy scheme, which is a scheme in the UK, which they were piloting at the time. I did it with my mum. They were piloting at the time where if you lived in like a council house or a housing association, they would basically knock some money off and you'll be able to buy the house. And so that's how I basically technically got my first home, like first property. So I didn't necessarily use the help to buy ISA, but I would definitely say Ken and Mary from the Humble Penny, if you type that in, help to buy ISA, they have an amazing video on that. My rent is cheaper, but bill is crazy. Unfortunately, I can't move as the place I stay is safe for me and my kids. Yeah, exactly. So again, some of these things will depend on your personal situation. So what I would say with that is maybe look at the bills and just really scrutinize them and make sure that what you're paying is what you should be paying as well. And see if there are any ways that you could potentially, switch providers if you need to. It's very hard to do that with utilities at the moment. I will say if you're in the UK, we're currently with Octopus. They've actually been quite good, I think, in terms of the way they have been dealing with the energy prices. But see if there's any way you can look at providers, see if there's anyone offering a cheaper alternative that's maybe better, that's still quite good quality. Just see if there's anywhere that you can actually again, compromise, evaluate, and then go from there. We definitely need a second car as I do school run and husband works. Yes, exactly. So again, this will depend on your personal situation. So for us, having one car is fine, just because, yeah, we don't have kids. If we did have kids, I don't know if we would have two cars. It might be that we would try to live in a place where maybe the schools are within walking distance, so that if the kids did go to school, at least one of us could just walk. But then that might not be feasible for you. So if you do need two cars, then you need two cars. But that's what I mean, is that try and find areas where you can compromise. Because for us, we can compromise on having a one bed flat and one car, but you might not be able to. But you might be able to compromise in other areas. So that's why you want to have a look at your own finances and your own expenses as well. Comparison through Meerkats. Yes, so if you're in the UK, if you use Meerkats, compare the Meerkat, and you get like cinema and 2-for-1 meal deals as well, and food stuff. Yeah, we use that as well, which is quite good. Glad to hear that you're recovering as well, Nova. But yeah, I feel like I've gone on a bit of a tangent, but there's quite a few comments. But let me move on to the next point. So the other point that I wanted to mention is when you're doing your budget, well, first of all, if you're not doing a budget, I would be doing a budget. But when you are doing a budget, start to see if you can understand where in the budget prices are rising. And that's a really important point. And this is why you have to be very, you don't want to dilly dally with your budget. And what I mean by that is be realistic with how much you are actually spending, because that's going to help you identify what areas are rising. So for example, in our budget, and you'll see this on Tuesday, 100% groceries is rising. Like it's rising, like it is definitely increasing. Our utility bills did increase from when it went up in April. It probably will, it will increase again in October. But apart from that and petrol, because petrol has also gone up, it's quite ridiculous to be honest, but petrol has also gone up. But those are the three areas that we know that prices are rising within our budget. Everywhere else seems to be okay. Like the way we're spending money, it's not necessarily gone up in other areas. Those are mostly the main areas. So when you know exactly what's going on, which areas are going up, you can then now start to budget accordingly and be realistic with this as well, right? So for example, I know that utility bills are probably going to skyrocket in October. And yes, in the UK, the government may also be helping with that, but I know it's probably going to increase. So what I want to make sure, and we've already done this, is setting aside some money just for utilities. So like when we had the council rebate, the council tax rebate, so we got given money from the government. When we had that, we put that straight into a pot for utilities because we knew that utilities were going to go up in October. And so we said, let's just put that money and set it aside. So that's what you want to now start thinking about. Where in your budget are prices rising? And can you start to set money aside for that if you know that it's likely to increase even more? Or with the prices that are rising now, ask yourself, is your budget reflecting that? So for example, because I know that our groceries bill has gone up last month, I'm not going to have the same budget for this month unless I plan on cutting back on food. And I don't really want to do that. I don't plan on doing that. So I'm going to increase the amount that we're putting towards groceries because I know that realistically, this is how much we're going to end up spending if we buy basically the same things or if we buy similar things, right? So really be, realistic. Octopus has been a nightmare. We haven't had that experience after the rise. Wow, okay. I think we only got one rise, which is after April. So maybe it depends. Yes, it's good to know. I've been on the other side. Yes, I've been on the other side, of course. If you look at my old videos, I have been in debt. I have been spending money. I was in my overdraft. Oh yeah, I've definitely been. That's how I know. Like I've been there, guys. I'm not the person who's literally had their finances intact and it's been all amazing. No, I have. I've struggled before, but again, you can move forward from it. You can move forward from it. All right, they messed up your tariff. Wow. Yeah, definitely have a chat with them. I mean, for us, they've been okay. It's been all right. But again, everyone will have different experiences. Oh my gosh, someone in Sweden. Wow. Yes, I mean, yeah, and even with the war as well, I really hope, yeah, really keep safe. Like, hope you're okay. Having to prep food, gas, and electricity. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that. I thank God that we're of course very blessed to be in this country, and I think you almost don't realize that even though we have these problems now with like our cost of living going up, if you think about other countries particularly that are near where Ukraine and Russia are, you just have to really just kind of be almost quite grateful and content, and really just say, to yourself, can I really just try and get through this and take control of this? Because yeah, there are people that are really struggling when it comes to food, gas and electricity in other countries. So yeah, I think your name's Matilda. Really, yeah, really praying for you as well, and hope you and your family are doing okay. I've seen so many posts about people abandoning their pets due to the cost of living. It's so sad, as people have to now decide between spending £30 a month on pet food or on a weekly shop. Yeah, exactly. And so again, that's where with those people, I wouldn't be surprised if they had an income problem where they were struggling before all of this high inflation. And so with them, it's definitely going to be more difficult. So you have to figure out whereabouts on the spectrum are you. Whereabouts on the spectrum are you? But there's like some dire things happening at the moment. So, if you've still got like a normal job where you're still able to have your expenses, definitely be grateful. Like, I'm always like trying to pray and just like be very grateful and understand that I'm in such a privileged position to just even have like a consistent income where I can still pay for my expenses, because it's very different for a lot of other people. So yeah, went to Asda today, and their own brand washing up liquid has gone up within a week from 89p to 95p. Every other day, the prices are increasing. Honestly, like I'm going to Aldi and I'm like, you used to be a lot cheaper. Used to be a lot cheaper, but unfortunately, it's the world we live in. And if we do end up having this inflation, it might not be as high, obviously, as like 9-10%. But if we do end up having this for a few years, we have to now think about how can we live with it, and how can we take our own control with our finances, whether that is trying to increase our income, or whether that is really getting clear on how we can manage our money well, and start thinking about that. Which actually leads me on to my next point. So the other point is, again, especially if you feel like you maybe have an income problem and that you're maybe struggling, you want to start thinking, are there any ways that I can make more money? So for example, could you ask for a raise at work? If you know that you've been doing really well in your job, and you know that you are very valuable to your company, could you particularly ask for a raise or like a promotion? If they don't want to give it to you, could you potentially look for a new job? And when you're looking for a new job, the reason why I sometimes like encourage my clients to do this is just because working from, and I come from a HR background, so I have experience with this, and I used to be a recruiter as well. With a lot of companies, when it comes to internal candidates, so if you are working in the organization, they are less likely to pay competitively compared to if you were an external candidate. So compared to if you decided to leave for another company, or if someone new was coming in, they're more likely to pay competitively. So if you feel like your job is just not giving you what you want, or they're just not paying you the way you think you should get paid, I would consider, maybe looking for a new job. I would also just be mindful, because if we do end up being in a recession, you just want to be a bit careful with the company that you're working for. And so what I mean by that is, think about, for example, if you're trying to go to maybe like a small business, or an SME, small to medium sized business, you just want to question, are they still going to be able to weather the storm if we do end up being in a recession? Like, do they still have money? Because a lot of small businesses, and especially like a lot of tech companies, they've obviously been like doing hiring freezes, they've been laying people off, and a lot of that is because they were using a lot of debt essentially within their companies. And now that interest rates are rising, they're no longer able to afford all of that debt. So a lot of companies may end up being bankrupt. So you just kind of want to be mindful in terms of, if you're looking for a new job, what's the company like in the industry? Are they in a strong industry where they're going to be able to weather the storm if we do end up being in a recession or anything like that? So that's what you want to look at. And maybe even consider starting a side hustle if you haven't already, or if you've always been wanting to start a side hustle, now's the time to start. When I started on YouTube, I would do that before and after work. That's when I would work on my side hustle. So I'd do like an hour in the morning and like a couple of hours at night, or just any pockets that you can have. But now would probably be the best time to start a side hustle if you are trying to make more money, or if you feel like you do need to make more money. I am a part of a membership called the called Financial Joy Academy. So they really help you to, start a side hustle if you have no idea where to start or what side hustle to do. Like, that's a really good membership to join. I do have links in the description below. They are affiliate links though, so just be mindful. Not mindful of that, but if you do use it, basically I get a bit of a commission from that, but it's no additional cost to you. And or even consider selling stuff. We've got a pile of clothes that we do not wear, and I still need to sell them. But if you've got things just in your house lying around, like, think about selling stuff, right? Just think about trying to be creative. So if you know that you do like have an income problem, that's what I would be focusing on. I'm just gonna have a look at some of the comments. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's definitely hard times, and things are getting a bit more expensive. But I think like even oh yeah, I know, women's football. Yes, yeah. I wasn't even here, so I need to like try and look at the highlights. But it's, things are getting more expensive. But I think the other point that I wanted to make is, try to keep calm and don't panic. Because I think if we start to panic, we start to almost lose control. And we still want to be able to have that control as well. But yeah, like even in the comments, there are so many good suggestions about, how you can actually save money. And, like where you can shop, particularly if you have pets and things like that. Yeah, and like so Jasmine's even switched jobs, and it's slightly higher salary. That's amazing. So exactly. Okay, so Jasmine works in private healthcare. So the job market is actually not that bad at the moment due to backlog private sector. Exactly. So if you're able to find any companies or industries that are still quite stable, you at least know that even if we do end up being in a recession, your job is still likely to be there. So at least you're still going to have that consistent income as well. But yeah, the other thing that I wanted to mention is really think about, okay, how can I take control even if there are other external things going on around me? Like, even though things might be going a bit crazy, and even though there might be some things that I can't control. For example, we can't control interest rates, we can't control groceries going up. But what we can control is at least how we decide to spend the money and how we decide to compromise. And so I think that's one thing that we really want to be able to focus on. And that's one thing that we're focusing on as well. So even though petrol might continue to go up and our groceries bill might continue to go up, we're still thinking about what we can do now, how we can still save now. And fortunately for us, we are still able to save money. But that's partly because we're very in tune with our finances. And if you know how to manage your money well, and if you know how to save well, even if things continue to go up, you can at least still do something about it, right? You can still save. It just might not be as much, right? So really think about that. Are there any questions? Just looking, some of the comments are quite funny. But we did it. But are there any particular questions? I'm going to hang on for a couple of minutes, and please let me know if this was useful. If it was not useful, please let me know. I really hope these lives are kind of helping you, just almost hopefully lift you up a little bit, and just kind of encourage you not to feel so down, especially if things are getting more expensive. I know it's probably going to be a lot harder when we go into winter, but I think if we can try and do as much as we can during the summer, I encourage you guys to really try and do that. I just got promoted this month and they gave a 10% increase, but I'm in the process of moving to another company where they're offering 40% more of my income. That is amazing, Noma. That is amazing. My only point would be with that is really making sure you know how to manage that money. Because if you're not careful, when you then get the increase in income, your expenses may also increase. So if you know you have a spending problem, really start to think, how can you manage the money, and start thinking how you can manage that money that you have now, so that when you start to get that 40% income, nothing breaks, right? You're still able to save, you're still able to manage the money, and then you're still able to save that money as well. How can you be consistent with saving and spending and not spending all the time? So good question. One of the things that may seem a bit weird, but one of the things that I think probably will help is how you think about saving and spending. So for me, the reason why I can save very easily but still spend is because I think to myself that it's possible for me to do both. So when I save money, I literally just save it just like that, and it just gets moved into my other account, and then that gives me freedom to spend the rest of my money. So literally, that's what I do. But also, when I'm talking about having a system, I'm really talking about when you're doing your budget. And I know, people don't really like to hear the term budgeting because it makes them feel restricted. I don't feel restricted with my budgeting, because when it comes to my budget, it's there to be, like, the money is there to be spent. I just need to decide where that money is going to go and how it's going to be spent. So when I do my budget, all I'm thinking about is, okay, well, this money is going to be saved, and then this money is going to be spent, and I can then spend it on whatever I like. And so having that system, when you get paid and you have money going into your savings, and then you can spend the rest, that's how you can then start to be a lot more consistent, right? That's how you can start to save, but you can also spend your money at the same time. And I know this because that's a lot of my clients always have that problem. They feel like it's an either or, like you either just spend all your money and you don't save it. But it's like, no, you just haven't created a good enough system that allows you to do both. And you haven't thought about how you can do both as well, right? You haven't thought about how you can really learn how to control your spending. And it's not, when I say control your spending, I don't mean cut back on spending. I actually don't mean that. But I mean how you can give yourself the freedom to spend on things that you genuinely value and still have money to save. That's the work that you might need to do as well with that. What are your thoughts on Amazon FBA, especially in light of overseas supplier prices going up by a lot and margins are slim, non-existent? I don't really have thoughts on Amazon FBA. I've never personally done it. In the membership that I'm part of, Financial Joy Academy, they do have like a course on people who do Amazon FBAs. But I would say definitely, I would look at people who are doing it already and see what they're saying about it, and analyze the pros and cons and figure out, whether it's going to be something that you can do. Because I think with any business or with any sort of side hustle, you can be successful in it. It's just how it's just really how do I say this? It's how you decide to implement it, essentially. It's what you decide to do about it. So some people will probably make a lot of money on Amazon FBA, and some people may make hardly any money. So you have to question whether you're going to be dedicated to do the work, and if you're okay with the margins as well, if you're okay with maybe not making a lot of money in the beginning. That's what you want to ask yourself. Setting up a direct debit on payday and moving the money out of the account automatically. Yeah, that's something that you could do. I actually don't do that just because I know how to I'm very comfortable with my money now, so it's very easy for me to just move it myself. But some people do that. Like when I first started saving money, I would try to set up a direct debit or standing order and move the money to a separate savings account. But you just want to be mindful, because I used to dip, even though I would do that, I would still dip into my savings. So there was a lot of work I still had to do with my spending and with understanding what I'm saving for that would help me not dip into my savings. But that's definitely something that you can do. Do you have a sinking fund for clothes and personal care, such as hair and skincare? Yes, we do. How do you weigh whether or not you're putting too much money towards these categories? There is no way. You have to question yourself, because how much will spend on skincare is going to be very different to you. So we do have a sinking fund. We have a sinking fund for clothes. We've got a sinking fund for skincare. I used to have a sinking fund for hair, because I mainly buy wigs, to be honest. So I used to have a sinking fund for that. Haven't had that in a while. Probably will do soon. But you have to decide what's valuable to you. So with clothes, we have a sinking fund, but we don't put that much money on it, just because we already have like a lot of clothes. So for us, it doesn't make sense to spend that much if we're not going to buy that much anyway. So you want to question yourself, but it's all going to go back to your goals as well. It's going to go back to what you deem as important. It's going to go back to what you really value, and then question yourself. So that's why, like, it's whenever like my clients come to me thinking that I'm going to tell them how much to spend, I can't do that, because I don't know what's important to you. Because I may not spend much money on skincare, but I could spend a lot more money on hair. Or if I'm like I spend a lot of money on like beauty treatments, like waxing. I spend money on that, but I may not spend as much on skincare. But for you, it may be the complete opposite. You may not need to wax at all, but you'd rather spend a lot more money on skincare. So it's very different. Personal finance is very different. It's personal, essentially. It's why I always like to say it's very personal. Um, so it's important not to try and compare to other people, but really think about what's important to you. Hi, Hope Emmanuel. Hope you're well. Yes, thank you for the live tonight. No worries. Well, I think I'm going to leave it there, because I have not had dinner yet. And I always do this where I haven't eaten. I really should eat dinner before my lives. But I really hope that was helpful. Again, if you want to follow me on Instagram, I do more content there, and it's a bit more personal. So you can follow me at Veronia Spain. You can see behind the scenes stuff, and yeah, DM me if you ever have questions. But yeah, I hope that was really helpful. Again, if you want further support, check out my links in terms of my one-to-one coaching, in particular when it comes to managing your money well. And yeah, I hope you guys have a really good evening. It's been great It's been great chatting to you guys. I feel like it's been a while since I've seen a lot of you guys on my live. So it's been really nice chatting to you. It's always nice seeing you guys in the comments, honestly. It honestly really makes my day, because it's nice to know that, yeah, you guys are okay, and you're hopefully finding this content useful. But yeah, all right, I'm going to leave it. Thank you. I will enjoy my dinner. I have not decided what to eat yet, but I will decide now. And we will speak soon next month. See you later. Bye.